Hey, you. Yeah, you. What you doing? I know what I'm doing. I'm starting right with Talking About the Blues podcast, baby.
Talk to me, good folks. You are now tuning into Talking About the Blues on MDO Radio Blues. And I have Deitra Farr with me today. Long tenure of bluesing.
Yeah.
Very well respected. How are you, Miss Deitra?
I'm fine. How are you today?
I'm just bluesing over here in New York City in the snow.
I'm so sorry. We don't have any snow in Chicago, which is where I am and where I live.
All right now. Already we're starting with some history with the blues, because if you don't know, you need to know blues in Chicago. So I guess we can go right into it. My first question to you, because you have such a rich, long history in the blues, how did this journey start?
It started with my dad. My dad was a blues lover, so he introduced me to blues as a child, and it was quite normal for me, but I found out a little bit later that it wasn't normal for my peers. They thought I was a little bit weird, that I liked Lightning Hopkins, Muddy Waters, and Lou Walter. And because, I grew up, I was born in 1957, so I'm a Motown baby and Stax Records, and,
Yeah.
the 60s music is the soundtrack pretty much of my generation.
Which is the blues. I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's funny. I mentioned this a couple of times in the last couple of interviews. Watching a documentary about the Funk Brothers, when they referred to the music they were doing, they always called it blues. They never really called it anything other than blues. I thought that was interesting. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, the Funk Brothers were pretty much my father's. They're a little bit older than me, a little bit older, probably my father's generation. So they were a little bit more conscious about where that music was coming from.
Interesting. Dig it.
Yeah, because when in the 50s, when I became a person alive, that was the music in Chicago.
It's just the blues.
Yes. All the records that everybody brags about, loves about Chicago blues was heavy coming out of Chicago in the 50s. Of course, there was other music going on as well. There was doo-wop, there was soul, there was rock and roll was starting. But blues was heavy in Chicago at the time of my birth. So the Blues Brothers, or what do you call themselves? Not the Blues Brothers.
The Funk Brothers.
Funk Brothers. They would have been of that generation. And Detroit is only 5 hours driving.
Right.
From Chicago. So we're very close together. My generation heard Motown. It heard the beginnings of rock and roll, the rock coming out of England or whatever, and coming back here. I mean, music was going all over the place at that time.
Right.
So I'm influenced by all that stuff. I heard it all, but I didn't realize till I started sharing what my father was sharing, that my music, what I was sharing, was considered old-fashioned. And the one friend called it low music.
Low music?
Yeah.
Okay,
I thought it was low class to listen to blues. So.
Now you just you just struck so many things right there, and if you don't mind, I wish to deter a little bit and discuss that one statement, because this is very historical here. Blues was referred to as low music, meaning lower class music.
Yes, it was considered low class. It was considered depressing.
Wow.
In fact, the first time I performed in Detroit, I was with Sam Lay's blues band, and I forgot the name of the club they have there. And I had a friend who came from Chicago who had moved to Detroit to marry a young man, and she came to the show. And she said, "You know what? I was surprised. I actually like this."
Wow.
I thought blues was depressing.
Wow.
Yeah. So that happened right there in Detroit. A friend of mine from Chicago said that to me.
Wow.
She had a completely different impression after she saw the show, you know.
Wow. So that's very telling, because it's very telling on so many levels, because it sounds like well, I just have to shoot straight from the hip. It just sounds like it's not necessarily that the music was infiltrated or taken over. It sounds like a lot of our own people turned away from it because it felt they were progressing, and they felt that the music was keeping them in a place they didn't want to be.
Right.
Wow.
It's a combination of things. One of the things is that they feel that music reminds one of the past, of the dark days of being an African American in this country. It reminds them of slavery. It reminds them of Jim Crow. It reminds them of things they want to forget about. Now, that's one part. The other part is they haven't been exposed to it very much. I'm talking the later generations.
Right.
And the other thing is black people evolve. Our music evolves. One of the reasons why we keep this music going in this country and all over the world is because we're constantly changing, we're constantly building. We don't stay in one place when it comes to music.
Right.
I've discovered over the years that white people tend to be traditionalists or whatever, and they want things to kind of stay the way they first heard it. And we're just not that kind of we're not that kind of people.
Wow, that's wow. And you know, Amiri Baraka touched on that in Blues People. He's like, most of our music, as black folk music, that is, pretty much evolves based on culture and social climate, the conditions we're in.
Right.
Wow.
And we're not going to stay in one place musically. It's just not going to happen.
Because we really don't stay in one place in
No,
society.
we changed the language. Have you noticed, do you hear on the news, like I watch the news religiously, and I'm hearing newscasters using hip-hop language.
Yeah, I hear that.
They don't even know. They're not even conscious of it. But that's black people changing the English language all the time.
Wow. Wow.
We're the innovators. We're the one that keep things going and changing and freshening up. That's what we do.
The state of blues now, because we've evolved so many times, and the blues had so many offsprings and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Mm-hmm. Where is the state of the blues right now, in your perspective?
Right now, it's being called global music. And what that means is everybody can play it, and it has nothing to do with black people anymore. I knew, and this is going to be a little controversial, but I'm going to go on out there and say it anyway.
All right.
I knew sometime maybe 10, 11 years ago when the Blues Music Awards was changed from the W.C. Handy Award. I took that like, they took this black man's name.
And took it off.
Oh, they took it off. I know where this is going. Now, I didn't say that out loud, but I said it to myself.
Right.
Because I knew, and to be honest, music can be played by anybody.
Absolutely.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with black people who sing opera. That's not our culture, but we have a right to sing it.
That's right.
We have a right to play it, and they have a right, other people have a right to play blues.
Right.
But I do have a problem when you start to act like black people had nothing to do with it.
Absolutely.
Now you're going to have some trouble out of me.
I dig it.
I mean, I remember back in the day, maybe this was in the 90s, Vincent and Hedges Cigarette Company had a blues competition of some sort. And the first thing I noticed was there were no black judges. And I said, oh, boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Here we go.
How you judging the blues?
Imagine a polka competition with no Polish people as judges.
Can't happen.
Can you imagine a salsa or mariachi music? I'm talking about ethnic music. Can you imagine that the people of those groups where that music originated is not a part of it?
I personally can't imagine, but I see it. Now, it's funny, and we have to talk on this because based on what you said, why is it that it only happens to black cultural things? Now, are we a part of that because we turned our back or evolved?
Well, the whole thing started in the very beginning. The whole process of enslaving black people was to take away everything that they ever knew. Their culture, their music, their drums, their history, you strip these people down, you take them away from their families, you put this tribe next to that tribe and they can't communicate with each other, and then already they have this distrust. That continues to this very day.
Absolutely.
You split families up, you disrespect black men in front of their wives, and you rape the women, and just on and on and on and on. This thing been going on 300, 400 years.
Yes. Well, at least documented for
nobody
400 years.
Really is this conscious of it. I mean, it's a few people that's conscious, but it's happening even now.
Mm.
And we don't know, a lot of us don't know, we're unconscious. A lot of us don't know what has happened to us, and not that long ago.
Right.
Jewish people say never again, never forget. Well, we forget.
See,
we don't want to hear about it.
And that goes back to my question. Why is it if Jewish people won't let you forget because they don't want it to happen again?
Right.
And, people are very, very, they walk on eggshells when they're addressing the Jewish Holocaust because Jewish people ain't having it. How come when black people discuss the African Holocaust, which is over 50 million people just on the passage over, we can't, we're being divisive, we're living in the past. Why is there a difference in your opinion?
Because we're taught to forget about it and just keep going.
Mm.
We're taught to forget about our history. We were taught this a long time ago. I asked my grandfather, who was born in 1910 in Mississippi.
Okay.
I asked him, did anybody ever talk about slavery? And he told me, I never heard nobody say nothing about it.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
Yes, he told me that.
Wow.
I don't forget about it. As I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm sitting on the side of my bed, and over my bed is a painting of a slave survivor that one of my friends painted. I don't ever forget about slavery, not one day.
That's right.
That's just me.
Mm-hmm.
Always been like that, And I was curious, and I started interviewing my older family members, Some of my friends on Facebook are fascinated that I've been showing pictures of my family, with my great-grandparents and all that. And a lot of people tell me they don't even have pictures of their great-grandparents, or they don't know their names. I asked my own dad, I asked him what was his grandmother's great-grandmother. He didn't know.
Wow.
He never asked. That's why he didn't know.
Right. No, well, I'm happy you cleared that up for the audience. Me and you are here. I'm out of professionalism, and I'm listening because my wife and I have the same conversation, and we're just so thrown back that our grandparents and their siblings, and they didn't talk about none of these things. No,
you were taught to just carry on. Just do your work and just carry on and forget about all that old stuff.
Right. Keep your head down. Don't cause no trouble.
Right. Well, I'm causing trouble. I don't care. I feel an obligation to keep going, but also remember what has happened.
So it won't happen again. Let's step to the side from music for a moment, because I see that you have a degree in journalism.
Yes.
Which is very telling in your research and passion for the research. Let's talk about that a bit and how you incorporate that into your blues. You started that off because you said you were interviewing family members.
Absolutely. I was in college at Columbia College in Chicago, and one of my professors gave us an assignment to do our family tree. But I had been doing that anyway. I had already been asking questions to the point of making people sick of me. Because I'm very curious about where I come from and why this happened and why that happened. And I used to beg my grandma, tell me about this. And I used to say, oh, I didn't know that. When she would tell me something, and she'd say, oh, it's enough you don't know to make a new world. And I'm just curious about black people more than anything.
Right.
I am very, very interested in that whole thing, you know. And I, studied journalism, and I started writing for the Chicago Defender. Actually, I started writing in high school. I wrote for the oldest neighborhood newspaper in Chicago, which was the Hyde Park Herald. And then in college, I did some pieces for the Chicago Daily Defender, which is the oldest black newspaper in America. In fact, just before you called, I was just meditating on, because the current editor of the Chicago Defender asked me if I would be willing to contribute some things.
Oh.
And I was just meditating on that just before I talked to you, because I have an idea about what I want to do, which is, I'm going to tell you, you're going to be the first one to hear this because I know it's the right thing to do. I want to start interviewing these old people, old black folks.
All right.
You know when something comes to you and it's right.
Yes, I do.
That's what Spirit told me this morning. You need to start, we got some rich history.
Yes, indeed.
And people die and nobody knows about these people. I don't want that to happen. I mean, I can't interview everybody in the world, but I want to start interviewing old black people. I want to know what they've gone through. I want to know what they know. Nobody asks questions. Nobody cares. I mean, I'm sick of this mess.
Well,
and the only thing I can do is do what I can do. I have a column in Living Blues magazine for the last 10 years, and it's called Artist to Artist, and I interview blues people from all over the place, Yes. I make sure I cover different parts of the country, and I get some people in Canada or Europe as well. But every issue, my column is there, usually on page 7. So, and prior to that, I was writing for Il Blues magazine out of Italy, and then I realized at some point that that was stupid because nobody can read my work except Italians.
Right.
Because it's I sent it in English, but it's translated into Italian. And I'm like, I'm writing some good stuff here,
That's real.
Everybody need to be able to read that's not Italian, so I resigned from that. And then years later, Living Blues had different editors that asked me to, do something, since I have a degree in journalism. And so I decided, one day it came to me, you need a column.
That's right.
And that's what I do, and my column is 10 years old now.
That's the real deal. And I mean, to piggyback off your statement, it needs to be here. Because see, the whole concept of the British invasion was the fact that overseas appreciated what our forefathers, ancestors, and the like was doing, and they repackaged it and sold it back to America. And America's like, well, wow, where did this music come from? And it's right here.
You're absolutely right.
So
that's true.
They need to
and
know.
That's still going on. They have more appreciation for us than in America.
Wow. So I can imagine. So the shows that you do overseas, and not to discredit American venues, because some of them are, they're upright. They try their best, but there's a lack of money here for our genre, so to speak. But overseas, you get treated better, apparently.
Absolutely. And 90% of my work is overseas, you know.
Wow.
And that is the shock of my life right there. Because when I was a young girl growing up on the south side of Chicago, I knew that I wanted to sing. But I was thinking about singing around Chicago. I wasn't even thinking about going somewhere else singing. It never occurred to me.
Wow.
You never know what life is going to do to you. You just, I always think about, people talk about the president, being black and the family and everything in the White House. And I'm often thinking about grandmama.
Right.
She's the one whose mind is blown.
Yeah, absolutely.
That woman, ain't no way in hell you could have told her that she would be living in the White House.
That's right.
I know Michelle is tripping and the kids are tripping and Obama's tripping, but grandmama
right.
is tripping because she remembers a whole lot of things.
Right.
Somebody need to interview her.
You're absolutely right because she remembers when she couldn't use the same bathroom. So
I'm telling you,
to be in the White House and not as a servant has to be just really, really mind blowing, as you said. So,
it is. Michelle Obama is a South Side black girl like me. And I'm older than her. This is the first time in history I've been older than the president.
Wow.
And the first lady.
Wow.
I'm younger than grandmama, though.
There you go.
And I can't even, you just can't imagine something like that. That you would shake up this world like that and do something this amazing. I mean, if they told any of us when we were children that we would end up where we've ended up, I mean, it is,
Yeah.
It blows your mind.
It does. It does. It
Somebody
definitely
need
does.
to interview grandmama, for real.
Yeah, I think you might be the one.
If I can get to her, because again, like I said earlier, those are the untold stories. I think about my aunt and different ladies that I personally know who have been through some things and started life one way and life took them another way. Those are interesting stories.
They are. They definitely
My
are.
aunt was on a bus with handicapped children, as an aide. And one of the principals at one of the schools she went to said, you should not be doing this. You should be a teacher. And she was in her 40s.
Wow.
And she had all the excuses that we all come up with,
Yeah, I do.
Well, I didn't graduate from high school, and I didn't da-da-da-da-da, and I'm too old, and that woman did not want to hear none of that. She said, those are just excuses. And she would not get off my aunt's back. Every time she would come to the school with the kids, she would tell her, now, what did I tell you now? You need to go back to school. Okay, finally my aunt decided to go back to school. She got the GED thing, you know what that is.
Yes.
Then she went to junior college. Then she went and got a bachelor's degree.
Wow.
She's in her 50s now.
Wow.
And then she started teaching in Chicago public schools. And then she went and got a master's degree. I mean, this comes from being an aide on a school bus.
But that's rich history. That's a success story.
If I get this column that I'm thinking about doing, I'm going to talk to the editor today. She's going to be the first person I interview.
I dig it.
Because she didn't even stop there. I told her one of our cousins has some paintings on display at the museum, and I said, he's fantastic, and he's blah, 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 and he's teaching art and blah, blah, blah. Do you know she got in the art class, and now my aunt is a professional artist?
Wow.
This is the woman on the school bus being an aide for the handicapped kids. Nothing wrong with that, but the principal said she could do more than that.
Right. Right.
And sometimes it just takes one person to see something in you.
And believe in you. That's right.
Believe in you. And because she saw something in her with the way she was dealing with the children.
That's right.
And she did become a teacher for disabled.
Well, that's good for disabled children, which they need that, you know.
Yes, she was good at it, and the principal saw that in her. And that same aunt caused me to be a teacher for years and years.
Mm.
So I'm just showing you how, you know,
Yeah.
things happen in this life, you know. And I just want to interview some of the old people. So that's just
but see,
that other side of me, outside of the music. You know, I'm so curious.
Right, but that also shows generations, and it shows the reach down and pull up. It shows the inspiration from a family member to the next family member to the next family member,
right.
How this thing works.
This aunt is my father's sister.
That's appreciating the struggle.
Yes. Yes.
Now let's return back to your beginnings for a moment, because everything we just described had to have played a big part, good and bad, positive and negative, in your early years of wanting to sing the blues, because you had opposition from your peers. They didn't understand the music.
No.
But how did that affect you? You know, did you feel like, well, am I crazy? Am I just different? Or were you like, this is a calling? I don't care what they say. They're going to learn.
I felt like they just didn't know any better. And I like what I like.
Mm.
And I accepted that everybody doesn't like the same things, because I come from a family where everybody likes different things.
Right.
You know, my grandfather was a truck driver, and he liked country and western.
Dig it.
He was from Mississippi, and they tell me down there that's what they heard on the radio. I hear a lot of old blues guys say that they heard a lot of country on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
So my grandfather exposed me to that. My grandmother on my mother's side, she liked gospel, so of course I listened to that through her. And if it wasn't for her, I never would have stepped foot in a church.
Mm.
She took me to church. My mother didn't go to church. My father didn't go to church. Didn't nobody go to church at that time. They get old and they want to go to church. But my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, always went to church, and she took me with her. So she exposed me to that. My dad exposed me to the blues. My stepmother is into salsa music. She introduced me to that whole culture of salsa music and dancing.
Right.
You know. So
Which is African.
You know, and my mother liked jazz. She liked Lou Rawls and all that, you know. So I was exposed to all the music, and my dad also introduced me to doo-wop, which I love. And he talked about how the boys used to stand on the street corners with their hair so close together they would crack skulls, you know, because they had to get them harmonies right.
That's right.
He used to tell really funny stories about that. So that's, you know, I'm okay with being a little weird if I like blues.
I dig it.
Okay.
That's right. It is okay, because it's funny because doo-wop is the offspring of, I would even go prior to primitive blues, the work songs and the spirituals. It's just,
yes.
You know, so it's all relative. It all comes from the same place.
That's right.
You know, so now you brought up the change in the name of the W.C. Handy's Award, which you actually won, didn't you? Or you were nominated?
I was nominated back when it was the W.C. Handy Awards. That's when I was singing with Mississippi Heat.
Mm.
I was nominated, which surprised me, you know. But
that shouldn't surprise you now. Come on.
Well, it did, because I hadn't, you know, I didn't know much about it, and I had never been, you know, given anything or nominated for anything before, and having too much sense. But it's okay, you know. I just do what I do, but I was a little disturbed when they changed the name.
Absolutely.
Because to me, those are baby steps towards removing us.
Right, changing the face.
That's where I see it, and I'm being proven right now because I'm seeing it. I'm seeing blues festivals with no black people on it.
All right.
I'm seeing some things that I didn't see in the beginning of my career. You know, in Europe, they didn't want any white musicians coming over that's playing blues because to them that wasn't authentic.
Right.
But now that has changed. I'm seeing more white people in Europe playing blues than black. And this is something that wasn't like that 30 years ago.
Wow, so it's not just here that this is happening.
It has spread, and the reason why is they first think about what will people accept. Starts there. I remember in the blues clubs here in Chicago, I lost my first gig because I had 2 white guys in my band, and I was told I had too many.
Wow.
But see, I didn't hire them because of their color. I hired them because they was willing to work for that little bit of money, which was not much money, and we had to do 5 sets.
Right.
So I hired who came to me and volunteered to work for this BS money.
Right.
It had nothing to do with color. So my band was evenly black and white. I don't have a race problem. You know, I don't have a problem with whoever want to play the music. It's cool with me.
Right.
But the club owner said the audience was going to be upset about it. And I worked week after week. Nobody ever said anything to me. But you got a white harmonica player. Because, see, at that time, most of the harmonica players were white.
Yeah.
At that time, around here in Chicago.
Right, because that was after the Little Walters, and that was the entry to, I can't think of this guy's name.
This was the early 80s. I'm 84.
Okay.
84. Most of the harmonica players, because, see, harmonica was not very popular with black musicians at that time.
Right.
Now, see, it has changed because now I see quite a few black harmonica players. But that particular time when I came on the blues scene from the soul scene, just about all the harmonica players were white. So that's how I ended up with a white harmonica player.
Okay.
You know, and the bass player was white, and that was because he came to me. I was new on the scene.
Okay.
He came to me and volunteered himself, you know. And he's very good. Even now, he's very good. He's on my first solo CD, too. That happened by accident. He wasn't supposed to be on there, but he is on there, and he's very good. And but the club owner kept after me to get rid of him, the bass player, and hire somebody else that was black. And I said, yeah, but the black person that you want me to hire will not work for this money.
Right.
See, I was paying dues back then. We was only getting $40.
Wow. That's
and we
big
had to work
dues.
5 sets. The Kingston Myers is the club I'm referring to. And at that time, there was not 2 bands. They got 2 bands now because it's a 4 o'clock bar. And now they got 2 bands, hour on, hour off, hour on, hour, all like. Back then, they only had 2 bands on the weekend. So during the week, I had Thursday nights. We would play 5 sets. Can you imagine?
That's
5 sets.
That's real.
And my dad came over there, and he's like, I don't know how you do it. I said, oh, I know how I do it. By 1:30, 2 o'clock, when the other clubs close and the musicians come in here, I start calling them to the stage. That's how. I didn't even have enough songs to do 5 sets. But I made it work, you know. I did it until he kept after me to get rid of my white boy, you know.
Right.
So, and I refused to do that. I said, look, I didn't hire him because he was white. I hired him because he's a good bass player, and he's willing to work for this money and do 5 sets.
Right, that's not easy to do. So see,
not at all. And again, I was new to the blues scene. I didn't know a lot of people.
So,
but I knew I wasn't going to fire him on his color.
No. Now, let's talk about that, though, because though one might say an extreme right would say that's reverse racism, which I don't believe really exists. But I don't. But do you feel that was our way of trying to hold on to what was ours that was being taken away? Because we couldn't play in a lot of white establishments. Now, mind you, as we all know or should know, after hours, white and black musicians would meet somewhere in a private location and jam all night. So we know this. This is, but as black artists, we either weren't allowed in a venue or to play, we had to come in through the back and not interact with anybody. So cats like this, that's like, yo, we require black musicians. Was that his way of making sure our people performed our music?
I think Aldous Club owner and some of the others, he wasn't the only one that felt that way. It was, see, in Chicago, the clubs on the north side, which is, we call them the tourist traps, most of the clientele are tourists. So when they come to Chicago, they expect to see black musicians on that stage. That's what that came from. And I remember one night, maybe 2 years after that incident, some people came here on a tour through the Smithsonian Institute. And they came here for a Chicago blues experience. And they went in the blues, or another club in Chicago, and they saw white guys on stage. They wanted to leave.
Wow.
I was with them. I was just like a helper or something. I wasn't in charge of anything. But I was there sort of like a little tour guide to help out. And I remember those women, when women were very vocal, they did not feel that whoever was on stage was the real thing. The band leader was black, but he had a couple of white guys in the band, and they wanted to leave.
Wow. See,
the older cats, some of us was blessed. When I came on the blues scene, a lot of the older cats were still alive.
Right.
So I got a chance to be around them and watch them and study with them and talk to them. This generation out here now, all they have is records.
Right.
And I'm not sure a lot of them even listen to those. But they missed something very crucial. So, and I understand the music is going to evolve. It's not going to stay the same. Muddy brought a different thing to the blues than what he heard.
Yes, he did. He electrified.
Walker did it even more than all of them. To another level. So music is going to do that. It's going to evolve. But still, something is missing.
Right, you still heard it.
On the drugs. I think that knocked out a lot of what should have been coming out of Chicago. And see, I'm only speaking about Chicago because I don't know what happened in other cities, but I know what I saw on this blues scene. And that's a missing link. You got guys playing on the blues scene today because they can get a gig, not because they love the blues.
Right.
But they can get a gig playing all the time or whatever, because we have actual clubs. So if you play other music, if you play funk and you play R&B, you might not have nowhere to work. But you can get some work in a blues club. So they bring all that stuff with them when they come, but they don't know the history. They don't know the music. They don't. And I'm frustrated with it right now. I'm going through it because it's only a few people that can say play with me.
Right.
If I get a gig somewhere, if I can't get these two bass players, maybe three, then I can't do the gig because the other guys, they don't know how to play 8-bar blues. They don't know what that is.
Oh, jeez. That's not groovy.
If you decide to just say, let's do standards to make it easy, they don't know how to do that either. Because they don't know the standards.
They don't know the blues.
No, they don't. I mean, you can't imagine a jazz guy not knowing the standards.
No.
He grew up, he wanted to be a jazz musician. So he went through the motions of learning the early music and the standards and doing his homework. Yeah. And then he can play what he wants to play.
Right.
But you got to get the rudiments.
That's right.
Or you shucking and jiving. I'm sorry. You shucking and jiving. So I do my little part. You know, I'm the solo black person that writes for Living Blues, and I'm honored to do it. I get to interview people out that I'm interested in. And when I do gigs with people that don't know what they're doing, I get on their case. There's one bass player in particular I worked with one night, and he said, you took us to school. He's still talking about it every time I see him. Girl, you took us to school. I'm so happy you did that. And I made him, I said, you know what? You blessed because you don't even have to buy the records. You can go on YouTube and get this.
That's right. That's right.
When I was coming up, we had to get out there and buy those records.
Yeah.
You will not meet the blues men that I met because they're gone, but you can get on YouTube for free. And get in these books.
That's
Learn
right.
this stuff.
Read up on
it. And that one guy that was on the gig, he's pissed off at me because he felt I insulted him. It ain't my fault you don't know how to play A-bar blues. Don't call yourself a blues man if you can't play A-bar blues.
I guess that's just really what it is.
I love A-bar. I'm one of these people that love A-bar blues. And if you can't play A-bar blues, me and you gonna fall out. So now it's a joke around the blues musicians. If you can't play no A-bar blues, don't go nowhere near her. It's a joke now.
But
I want them to take it serious.
Yeah, because there's truth in comedy now.
Yes. I want you to learn the roots of this music. I'm not saying you got to stay there. Don't stay in the root. You ain't got to stay there.
Unless you won't.
If you want to, cool. But you got to build on something. Where is the foundation of what you're playing?
Right.
You know, if I sit in the club for 4 or 5 hours and I don't hear no blues, something is wrong.
And especially if you're calling it the blues. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So it's a mess, I tell you. It's a mess. And I really don't know what. Only thing I know to do is do my part. I mentor young people.
Good.
If they'll listen. And some of these people I'm mentoring is not children, they're grown. But they'll call me and ask me, different things. But I mean, I just can't do it by myself. I don't know where this is going, but the way it looks like it's going, I'm not happy about it.
Explain, in your opinion, the importance of trying to get and reach urban kids to give them these lessons and this education, because it's very, very important to the culture and the history.
We need some airplay on the radio. We need, what's getting ready to happen? I don't know where this is going, but R. Kelly is starting to sing blues.
Really?
People like him, a lot of people know about a lot of things because the rappers and hip-hoppers do a lot of sampling.
Right.
R. Kelly, I posted a video of him the other day. He is starting to sing blues. Why? I don't know. I need to talk to him. Somebody like him who influences the young people, he could open some of that up.
Yeah. Yes, he can.
Because when he was performing on this guy that I was just talking about, the bass player that thanked me for taking him to school, he was actually playing on bass on that video. And he said R. Kelly walked into this venue and grabbed that microphone and went the lump, and the people in the audience went crazy. Guess what? He's a good blues singer.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't doubt. First of all, he's from Chicago. Secondly, regardless to what anybody thinks about this man's personal life, he is, to me, he's this generation. I'm from the hip hop generation. My favorite musician of all times and my favorite songwriter of all times is Stevie Wonder. I'd go as far as saying R. Kelly falls into this generation's version of Stevie Wonder, and probably more so if there wasn't so much social media, because we didn't know what people were doing back in the day because nobody found out. Where could the good folks that listen to Talking About the Blues, I know where to find you, but tell them where to find you. Your YouTube, your website, your
all that.
Yeah.
I have a website which samples my music, and I have, I'm on YouTube all over the place, almost too much, because every show I do ends up on YouTube the next day, which kind of disturbs me, but I really can't do anything about it because everybody's got cell phones that film people, and there's a camera lurking in every corner.
Yeah.
So that's another issue that we're dealing with now. Is music being stolen?
Well, yeah. You know what? Let's wait. You know what? Finish telling people where to find you. We could touch on that briefly before we wrap up. Go ahead.
About what?
No,
I'm just saying that's where you can find my music. It's on the internet.
Are you on Twitter?
No, I can't deal with all that. I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
That's enough social media for me.
I dig it. So go to the website, y'all. But before we wrap up, let's talk about that, because music was always stolen, but now it's different because people can come to your show and film you, not necessarily with malicious intent, but just because they're excited about your show and post it. And
that's right.
That, that's your likeness. That's a whole bunch of things they're not licensed to, 1. And 3, well, 1 and 2. And 3, they may prevent somebody from coming to pay for a show because they're like, well, I can see it right here. How do you feel?
Thank you. I keep telling folks this is not helping. I have mixed feelings about it because I've actually gotten gigs because of YouTube. I've gotten a part in the movie because of YouTube. Somebody saw me on YouTube and decided I would be perfect for the movie. I've gotten corporate gigs because somebody went on YouTube and saw me. I mean, it has worked for me, but I also feel that, nobody wants to spend money if they can see something already. One woman had my whole show on YouTube. I had to make her take it down.
Wow.
So now the element of mystery and surprise can be gone because somebody can go and put all your stuff on the internet. And some of the clubs, Buddy Guy Legends does this. They film the shows, so if you can't make it to the show, you can just stay home and look at it. So I don't like none of that.
Now, tell the good folks what you have coming up, and a book seems to be on that list.
I am writing my memoirs. And it's the hardest thing to do because you have to decide what to put in and what to take out and, what to not say and what to say. It requires a lot of thought,
I dig it.
Because you can get yourself in trouble.
You can. You get somebody else in trouble.
Other people in trouble. So it's not something to be taken lightly. But that's what I'm doing. And it's taking me forever. People are bugging me about it. Girl, when that book don't come out. And I said, I know some folk don't want that book to come out.
No.
But I got to do it.
Listen, Deitra, it has been such an honor to sit here and talk about the blues with you and your blues journey.
Thank you so much for calling me. Thank you so much for getting in touch.
Yes, we got to be. You are definitely a wanted recurring interview. So anytime you got something going on, let me know. We gonna shout it out.
All right, I really appreciate that.
Groovy.
And you keep in touch.
Absolutely.
All right, well, God bless.
God bless. You guys have. You're welcome. You guys have been blues, and we're talking about the blues. All right, and as we always say at the end of the show, besides come back next week, if you don't do nothing, make sure you keep God first and keep on bluesing.